can you price a property too low?
No. If you're going to sell your home, do it when it suits you. There's no good or bad time. There's slower markets, there's faster markets. Well, imagine you're selling your son's bike on eBay. If you haven't sold that bike on eBay in 3 months, what's your first thought? It might be too much money. Is the advertising wrong? What's going on?
I can see why people don't want to speak to a couple, because if you go and see one of those mortgage advisors, you're then sitting in that office for 2 hours. If you speak to Dylan, he'll go away and find the product. Technology, how do you think it's going to change the market? Do you think it's going to change the market?
I think it's going to change the world, and the property market's part of that.
So local lowdown, Cityball and Kent property scene. So we've been asked a number of questions recently about what the current market's doing. Obviously, at the point when we're doing this, it was the 7th of October, 2025. There's a lot of noise that's in and around the market. What the market's doing, the budget's coming up. As I keep alluding to at the moment, it's this negativity, this miserableness, and the media grabbing hold of it. The whole point really about doing this is, what the questions we're getting asked on a day-to-day basis, and then ultimately put a little bit of truth to the market. And I suppose you're just an estate agent. You would say that, but I'd rather work on data and facts, and this is the whole point of where we are. So really, I suppose when we're looking at it about the local market and what's happening at the moment, so current trends, market analysis. So what would you say, what's happening with house prices at the moment, Ben?
It's an interesting one. I'm seeing more confidence with that. Again, typical estate agent thing to say, because obviously we're selling houses. A lot of the talk around is that it's slow. I'm speaking to certain sellers, potentially getting advice from other agents. It's slow, it's the market. First of all, they're blaming summer holidays. Then the kids are going back to school, they're blaming that. Now Christmas is around the corner. I don't believe in all of that, if I'm honest. If you're listening to your agent and they're saying, oh, well, Christmas is around the corner, so your house isn't going to sell. Well, I put my offer in on the 10th of December. Make it make sense. Why? Because I needed to.
It's a really interesting point, because again, I found this over the years. And I was actually looking through Facebook the other day, and somebody said, oh, when's the best time to sell? We're thinking about putting it on the market in December. And here we go. All the agents are going to be going, oh, get it on Boxing Day, which is a frustration of mine, because it's the biggest day for hits online, which is actually technically true. I'm not going to deny that. Right, it is. Rightmove do say that the amount of clicks online, but really, does it matter when you go on the market?
No. Because
why is that?
Well, there's no better time to sell than when you need to sell.
Yeah. So again, just elaborate on that and what you mean. But I understand what that is. But anybody that's watching it,
no one wakes up in the morning and goes, should we go to the park? Should we go to the swimming pool? Or should we have an estate agent around to value our house? There's always a reason why.
Yep.
So if you need to sell or you want to sell, it doesn't matter what time of year, because ultimately there's going to be buyers at any time of the year.
Yeah.
The argument could be made that around Christmas time, there's less buyers in total, but more serious buyers. Because I always say, who wants to view a house on a cold, wet night in December? No one that wants to, somebody that needs to, a bit like myself last year. So there is no time like the present. If you're going to sell your home, do it when it suits you. There's no good or bad time. There's slower markets, there's faster markets. But we go to work every day in December, right?
Yep.
So why on earth do we go to not sell houses? Do we just kick our feet up? I know from the outside looking in, yes, we do go to work in December, and yes, houses do sell and come onto the market, and transactions do not stop because Santa Claus is coming.
Yeah, valid point. The way I always see December is the people that are looking are serious.
Certainly.
But yeah, it's always a very interesting point that comes up. I go back to obviously COVID, actually, just quickly touching base on that. And I remember having a conversation with somebody there, and it would just come out. It was the 13th of May. I remember it very, very well. And the reason I remember it is our wedding anniversary. And I remember estate agents were allowed back out again. And I remember having a conversation a week later with a gentleman, and he said to me, he'd made an offer on a property, and he was going to say, it doesn't matter, I'm going to buy towards the end of the year then because prices are going to drop 20%. And I said, look, my view is I don't think they're going to. And he went, oh yeah, you're one of those estate agents just trying to talk it up. And I went, no, I generally do believe this bottlenecking at the moment. And if I was you, I'd buy now rather than wait 6 months later. He actually came back to me 6 months later and said I should listen to you. But then again, I don't get me wrong, I'm no Mystic Meg. I just base it on very highly intelligent people around me that predict a market based on factual data rather than just giving an opinion. A lot of people say, and again, we've gone through this time and time again, and it's actually a figure that comes on later on down the line. Like prices, for instance, right? What are prices doing at the moment? If you look at the average prices and what they've done year on year, the data that we have today is 6 months. They're down 1.9%. That's asking prices, not land registry data.
Yeah.
So,
but it's a portion of that agent's understanding that if a house is worth X, putting it on for X plus 25, is that not agents? Is that them learning that, okay, you can't do the classic, oh, well, if it's worth X, we put it on a little bit more and maybe we'll get more, because we know from being in, boots on the ground that doesn't work in this current market. Do you think it's agents genuinely just catching on to that, or do you genuinely think prices have fallen in terms of asking price?
Well, the data says asking prices have gone down, but then when you look at it, as I said, we haven't got the land registry data. So, for instance, the example that you were talking about yesterday, we put the property onto the market, and what percentage did we get over the asking price?
15.78. Not that I'm that careful with it.
I'm impressed you actually knew the figure. So 15.78%. So then the questions that we get asked are, well, you've priced it too low. Can you price a property too low?
No. Arguably, the house that we were selling yesterday, all arrows pointed towards 230, 240. Mm-hmm. We put it on offers over 210. If we accepted the first offer that came in, yes, we've undersold the property. What we actually did, the journey with that one, we popped it online. We did a bit of an off-market, gathered about 10 viewings, and thought we're going to boost this with some online activity for the weekend. We put it on Monday. We had to take it off on Tuesday because we were inundated. Maybe, yes. Was it priced too low online at 210? Offers over, might I add. Potentially. However, by using that approach and generating, I think we had like 28 viewings take place on one day. And then from there, I had multiple offers, got into a bidding war. And if you have an agent that generally is offering you good advice and is a skilled negotiator, you can't undersell the home because all arrows were 230, 240, and it sold over that. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, obviously, and this is the conversation I have time and time again with a lot of clients, is if you put it on at, say, for instance, 210 in this instance, and the first offer that comes in at 210, you accept it straight away, we haven't really demonstrated to you that we have got the best price. But ultimately, if you're going for a strategy and you're sticking to that and you're doing a number of viewings, as I said, we had to turn this one off because I did look at it and we actually had 42 inquiries on it within 24 hours. Opposed to the other way around, when you have, say, maybe you're not in a rush, because I hear this quite a lot as well, is, we're not in a rush to sell, which, in my opinion, is probably one of the worst situations you can be in. Explain, why? Well,
if you're not in a rush, it's just such a, and it's no fault of people. It's just more, again, arrows pointing to the agent. Because no agent will tell them that their best opportunity to get the best price comes within the first 28 days. Mm-hmm. Imagine it's not like for like, but it's the same principle. Imagine you're selling your son's bike on eBay. If you haven't sold that bike on eBay in 3 months, what's your first thought? It might be too much money. Is he advertising wrong? What's going on? But ultimately, you're looking at price. And at that very moment in time, if you bring the price down 3 months after having a property online, you're only, statistically speaking, based on the data, going to get around 80% of the original marketing price. Mm-hmm. What makes it worse is agents are going to go, we'll just reduce it, £5,000.
Yeah, so that would probably be about 1.9%, which is, as I said,
insignificant.
It is insignificant. There's no point reducing it at all, to be honest.
Exactly. You're actually costing your seller £5,000 by not having the backbone to say, no, it needs to be this, and here's why. Mm-hmm. Because if you do, if a house is up for 500 grand and you bring it down to 495, you're not going into a new price bracket. You need a 50 grand adjustment to do that at that level of the market. Mm-hmm.
So quickly on that, what is price brackets? So this is a very interesting point actually, and how agents market it. So quickly explain what a price bracket is.
So we use Rightmove as an example. Mm-hmm. So when you're searching on Rightmove and you put your budgets in, basically what you're looking at is the increments. So in the 200,000s, it goes up in £10,000 increments. Mm-hmm. So 210, 220, 230 and so on. But as you get further up, then brackets get larger. So the 300,000s, it's £25,000 increments. So you can't search on Rightmove. My budget's 340,000. You can't search that. It's got to be 350. So 300, 355, 350 and so on. When you get further up into the 500s, 600s plus, it's £50,000.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have a house on the market at 500,000 and go, right, we'll drop it to 475, but you're not appearing to anyone else new. They still need a budget of 500,000 to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So by and large, you're advertising the property to the same people that have disregarded it at 10, 15, 20, 30 grand less, but you're not appearing to anyone else new. So that advice is costing your seller money. Mm-hmm. Whereas if maybe you had that horrible conversation of, look, if we went to the next bracket down, it's £50,000, John, but just hear me out. We'll do the offers over approach. Here's an example. And as long as you're doing that accurately, you're going to have a similar result to the one we had yesterday. Inundated, oh my God, fresh group of people, everyone through the door, multiple offers, drive the price up and meet somewhere closer to the original marketing price, ideally at it.
It's a really good point, actually, because we've had a number of properties at the moment where they've been on with another agent, they've come over to us, and we've been quite successful in actually selling the property. Because again, we changed up the strategy. But again, one of those things, before we talk about that case studies, a lot of people say, oh, there's no point in changing agents. I think sometimes it's the aggro of doing it, potentially, I don't know, or the other agent feeding a load of rubbish. I think, as I said, from my experience, agents get lazy, and it's just then a case of waiting for it to sell, which is the worst thing to do. So, for instance, the property that we took on, we had it at 410, and I know that you suggested a price. Obviously, it took it down another bracket, but it wasn't quite where you wanted to market it.
Mm-hmm.
We went on, had a number of viewings. We had more viewings, or I think we had 6 more viewings within the first few days. Then they went down to the price that we suggested, and then suddenly we achieved a deal, or we achieved an offer that was more realistic, although they wanted a little bit more. But interesting, what it's enabled them to do is they've had a chat with our mortgage advisor, and based on the figure that we've actually achieved for the seller, our advisor has actually been able to find them an additional £30,000, which has enabled the deal to happen. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes you shouldn't be fixated on what you want to achieve, because in this case scenario, it's enabled them to actually move on and actually get the ideal house that was on the market for them.
It's true, and in every other aspect of life, there's so many things that you want but you also understand that really can't be done straight away. Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to be a millionaire. That's what I want, but I'm not going to work waiting to be a millionaire. No, you build on it, don't you?
Yeah.
And sometimes you just do have to take, especially the property market. You know, you have to take it as it comes. If you employ the agent that statistically is achieving more than anyone else in the area, which we are, you need to take their advice on how they're doing it. And you might have the argument, oh, well, if the other agent reduced it, you know, would they have had the same result? And maybe they wouldn't have negotiated as far, but equal parts, that agent couldn't look you in the whites of the eye and give you that advice.
I see one the other day, I'd rather talk case studies, and I see one the other day where they'd reduced it 5 times, and it had gone down 395, 395 down to 385, 385 down to 380, and then 380 down to 375, and it was still available. But the problem with that, we know that it's too high. However, a consumer, if they had access to the data that we had, and ultimately they're looking online probably more than what we are. I know we look daily, but they're probably continuously looking for new properties that are going live. And if they're seeing the same property reduce, it's going to create what's wrong with it?
Oh, certainly. And what you hear a lot of people, especially like any property that's been reduced, buyers always ask why. Mm-hmm. And it might be what's wrong with it, but it also might be how desperate are they? Can I sneak in with a cheeky bid? And that's what I did with my house. So it was 18 grand under the asking price. Mm-hmm. They reduced it about 3 times, but not significant. And that was in a bracket where all you had to do is convince them to go down maybe 10,000 because it was in the 200s. But it was going down at 5 at a time. And it was on the market for nearly a year when I found it, all of 45 grand less than what it started at. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's always questions. It doesn't matter whether, and this needs to be known, is that buyers, like you say, they do know. Mm-hmm. I went out to one, for example. I mentioned a property, a comparable that was on the market 18 months before in the living room, and this seller knew about it. And it ties into the fact, how long do people consider about moving? I think the average time is 9 months looking at data before even calling an agent. That one conversation over a few beers over dinner, and then 9 months later you actually commit. But in that time, yourself or your partner might be going through Rightmove, just keeping an eye on things, seeing what's happening. So buyers know.
Really interesting point that you've just said there, because I'm going to touch base in a minute of how long it's actually taken to sell a property on average. But while it's in my mind, this is something that we've had a couple of times recently, where we'd gone out to a property, or an agent had gone out there last year, and the comment, for instance, I'd use a figure at the moment. Say, for instance, the agent was suggesting a price last year of 400. The unfortunate thing, which we talk time and time again, which is that word valuation. We're not valuers, but again, we'll touch base on that in a minute. Just because an agent suggested a price last year doesn't mean that that is the figure that the property is worth. Now, this is, again, subject to market conditions. Like that property that we mentioned earlier on that was 375. I was selling properties 2 years ago at 425. So 425, but again, we were overachieving probably a couple of years ago, whereas now, as I said, the market is telling us a different story. So just because a property was at that figure last year, it doesn't necessarily mean that that was actually the figure that it was actually worth. Ultimately, it boils down to who's in the market at the time, what's the demand, is there any other properties that are currently on the market, and ultimately, if you went back last year and that property was worth 400, but properties in the area at the moment now going at 375, the price is probably more 375 than it is 4. Would you agree?
No, certainly. And don't get hung up on, like you said, it's not a valuation. You know, we do market research based on data. So if you are a seller listening to this, don't get hung up on what the estate agent professional valuer valued your home at last year, because how many properties come to the market and reduce anyway? So you could have ended up in the same place. So my first point is, we're not valuers. It's not a value that you were going to go on the market and achieve. It might have been. I hope for your sake it was. But there's nothing's guaranteed. And my second point on that is swings and roundabouts. So the one that you wanted to buy, an upsize from your 400 example you gave, that was 550 at the time, might be more 500 now. Yeah. So it's literally swings and roundabouts. It's a market. Tell me anything in life where it's almost a guarantee that you can sell something for the maximum and buy for the lowest amount. Like, the world's not set up that way.
Well, again, I talk me as well. And like, for instance, when I bought, it was 9 years ago that we bought the property, and the property was on at 350. It was a marketing price, is the way that I see it, and I paid 360. What was it worth to me? Probably 375. Why didn't I pay it?
Didn't ask.
The agent didn't ask me. And so at the end of the day, what would you say that property was worth there? Now, ultimately, land registry data is saying 360. So that's what you would probably say the property was worth. But again, if I'd have known that there was somebody else there, I'd have easily paid 375. The way that I looked at it is slightly different to somebody else. I had to do a lot of work to the property. Now, ultimately, by doing the work to the property, at the time, without any extension, what would it have been worth? Probably 375, which was what I would have paid as a fly. With me, though, and me and my other half, we were looking at it as a long-term investment. So I wasn't looking at it thinking, right, I'm going to spend 25,000 on it. Is it going to be worth £50,000 more? Well, it doesn't really bother me because I'm not selling. And I think sometimes this is what a lot of people get cut up on is, if I put X amount of money into it, is it going to be worth X? Well, are you going to sell tomorrow? No. Well, what does it matter? How long are you staying there? 10 years? Well, it doesn't really matter then, does it? You've got to look at it, in my eyes, as a longer term investment. And can you see you and your family there? Or again, if you're downsizing, is it the ideal property for you? Because if you're going to stay there for 10 years, you're not going to move again. It doesn't really matter what it's on the market for. If it matches what you need, don't muck about with making silly offers, because it's not going to be worth that in 2 years' time. I don't know what my house is going to be worth in 2 years' time. Nobody does.
Nobody does. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, you see it so much where buyers immediately, they morph from buyers to surveyors to professional builders to anything in between, where like you hear it all the time. Oh yeah, this property needs, which always grinds my gear. Oh, it needs 40 grand spent on it. Okay, because that rear patio that doesn't exist in the garden that you want. Does it need? Does that need to reflect in your offer? Something that's not there, that doesn't need to be changed. You want it? Let's change that. What wording? And it is a shame, because you see time and time again, like that one that sold yesterday. We went to best and final offers, and I got a bit of an earful from somebody that missed out. But I gave them the opportunity, and they offered that and stayed where they were, because it needed this, it needed that. So sometimes, you are going to miss out if that's the mentality. Another gentleman thought, wants a bit of work doing to it, but let's just go for it.
I think also as well is sometimes it goes back to they're trying to get it as less as possible, and the classic one is, what's your no regrets offer? Can you walk away with the fact that you know that you paid the price, and probably there might have been a little bit more in it, but somebody wanted it a little bit more. He might not have been able to offer more. That might have been the case, and it's emotional. We understand that. Don't get me wrong. Did you like letting down 10 people?
19.
19. Blimey.
So I ruined 19 people's days yesterday. Didn't feel good, but the one guy that got it kind of made up for a bit of it.
Yeah, and as I said, that unfortunately is sometimes what we have to deal with. It's tricky. We're there to represent the seller, but then ultimately with that, we don't want to let buyers down.
No, of course. It's always tricky, isn't it? So when it's going over the asking price, you've got multiple people. Like I said, 28 people viewed it. We had 20 offers.
Yeah.
So there are going to be 19 let down buyers. So if you're living in Walderslade and you want to sell your 2-bed end of terrace house, let us know.
Yeah. So let's go back to how long is it at this very moment in time taking to sell a property in Sittingbourne. So if you look at the data of where we were today, it's taking 11 weeks. So again, that would indicate that the market's quiet, would it not? If
You're talking going under offer?
From marketing going on to Rightmove, to under offer. The current stat at the very moment in time is it's averaging 11 weeks.
Is that area average or UK wide?
Sittingbourne.
Sittingbourne?
Yeah.
Do you know ours?
Yes.
Yeah?
Hopefully you know ours.
I do.
Yeah. But going back to that, so going back to the 11 weeks, if you were a buyer and you were seeing properties on the market for 11 weeks, that would probably give you the impression the market is slow.
Ties back to the eBay listing. It's too long.
Yeah, yeah. And ours is?
42 days based on the last 2 years.
Is it 2 years?
Yeah, so it's the 20 EA data that I've got that I use.
Interesting.
Which puts us at 42 days over the last 2 years on average, which is pretty impressive. What's yours look like? Because I take it we've measured a different time scale by the look on your face.
No, you got the right figure. I'm just reading the next question. So again, when you're looking at that, now we don't, obviously there's a few properties at the moment that have stayed stagnant, and we are committed to obviously getting them sold. They're sticking there on the market. There are pockets, aren't there, at the moment that are sticking. We've got obviously a retirement flat at the moment. They're like buses. There's either hundreds on or none on. The figures, as I said, we're not there, but if a property is priced correctly, we're still over, 14 days on what I hope to achieve. But when you're looking at 42 days to 11 weeks, I would say that's quite impressive.
Oh, certainly. I mean, it's the quickest in Sittingbourne by 10 days.
And nationally wise, that, as I said, it's... I was looking at this a little while ago, and again, it was approaching 3 months on average throughout the UK. So... And we were a little bit higher actually, but again, we've obviously implemented our strategy to a point now. I would say it's really refined. So, are properties in Sittingbourne achieving their asking price?
It depends. It really does depend. There's so much on in Sittingbourne at the moment that is sticking, but there's so much that is selling quickly as well. I know we're averaging about 2% over the asking price. So is it achieving or breaking through? Breaking through is what I'd rather do. But in general, what's your thoughts? What's the data on it?
Well, the amount of times I've spoken to a seller and they've actually said to me, I don't believe anyone's going to pay over. I've had one recently where we suggested marketing, and it was on the market for 9 months with another agency at 425. No, it's 435. Not sold, couple of viewings, which would indicate to me the price is too high. So I suggested it needs to be 400. The other agent went out there and said they're really confident they're going to get 425. I know their data, they were never going to get that. Or they I don't want to come across as unprofessional here, so let's keep to the sort of facts. But okay, so the evidence there for me was it wasn't worth what that was. Yeah, another agent went out there and said, oh yeah, 100% we're going to get you X, and it's been on the market now 8 weeks, still on the market at 425, not sold. So when you're looking at it, it's not surprising that properties are on the market there for a long time, not selling, when other agents are just saying what. So why would an agent go and say, oh, we can easily get you X, when another agent's failed over the last 9 months?
I think there's three main reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know how I feel about long contract lengths and
This one was
targets.
20 weeks.
So 20 weeks, okay. So I know the company. Interesting. I think part of it is a lot of corporate agencies have got, and none of you guys listening would probably know what this means, but it's called a listing target.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've discussed it before, where you're targeted on how many properties you can bring to the market if you're deemed a valuer. I think a lot of it's to hit their targets on a personal level so they can get paid, so they can feed their families, which to an extent, from a welfare perspective, I understand, but it doesn't help you as a seller following the instructions of an agent who's promising you the world and under-delivering.
So they get paid without selling it?
Yeah, so if you hit this target, you're entitled to your commission, at least in the structure that I used to work in, which I think is similar across the board. So you're targeted on getting them on the market, which is ideal for them as an individual, but doesn't help the client. I think the second reason is it's easier just to be agreeable. I think, we're the only industry, you would never go into your doctor's surgery. They go, right, you really need to rest. You're on the brink of a heart attack and you had a mini stroke. No, I didn't. I had a few too many beers and I was hungover. Shut up. You never hear that, do you? Oh my God, panic stations. I'm going home. You listen to your doctor. I think we're in an industry where people don't listen to us. Maybe it's the endowment effect, or maybe it's the fact that we roll over too much, which is probably another reason why they took it on an unrealistic price.
I think, as I said, also, I see a graph the other day. We're actually going up the pecking order. We're not quite at the level of nurses yet. We're a long way off that. I think nurses are trusted 94%.
A third of the way.
I think we're at 30.
37.
37, yeah, 37. So that's a vast improvement to where we were about 10 years ago. So we're going up the pecking order.
That's it. We've overtook journalists.
And politicians, but I wonder why. No, it's not talk politics.
No, never heard of it.
So, and I've said it, and again, it's the vision that we have for the company is to change the perception of estate agents. That's our North Star, and this is, again, one of the things why we're trying to answer as many questions as possible. So if you do have any questions or anything, I was part of a group the other day answering a few questions that buyers and sellers had in regards to what they should disclose and not disclose, material information. I really, really would like to hear from you because, again, ultimately this would then form our next podcast. So that's another thing to put out there if you're watching this. And I know we're only, 20 minutes in. So if you've lasted this long, well done. We were talking about how long it's taken on to sell a property. So I suppose this is a great time really to talk about the importance of accurate valuations if we're going to target valuations. So I know we sort of alluded to a little bit, but why should somebody price attractive opposed to not? Have we covered that?
No.
Far away. Okay, so why should somebody price their property accurately rather than go on at an inflated price?
So pricing accurately is very important. Obviously, we gave a few examples earlier about how it can work in safe hands with trusted negotiators. Obviously, we're all advanced negotiators. We've got the certificates to prove it, so we can do that.
Great point. So what is an advanced negotiator?
Well, it's a course that you've put our whole team on, regardless of rank or role, to be advanced, trained, skills negotiators. Because ultimately, yes, we're marketeers, but you're really, like you alluded to earlier, why didn't you pay $375 for your house? They didn't ask. Little things like that. It doesn't sound like a big thing to ask someone, but how you articulate it, how you dress it up, and the emotional aspect of offering is massively important in getting good results for people. So yes, advanced negotiation courses. If the agent that comes around doesn't have one, and then two of them don't, one of them does, ultimately that's the difference maker between 5, 10, 15, 20 grand or more. Obviously, the one example gave from yesterday, in fact, we're not going to get into what they would have taken, but it was certainly a damn sight lower than what was achieved. And that, I truly believe, was down to pricing it attractively, but also being an advanced negotiator, because you can't deal with 20 offers if you're not. So yeah, pricing it right, massively important. Some of the greatest results we've had this year in a very tricky working market have been ones where I'll give an example without giving a name. So there's 3 houses, like-for-like houses on the market, 350 not selling. I went out to one that blew the socks off the other houses. This was lovely. Brand new kitchen, brand new this, brand new that. The only thing that hadn't been replaced is a boiler. The house was only 12 years old. Everything was new. And I said, offers over 325. And after they almost fainted, I sort of explained why you want to, if you know, there's 3 houses, they're not selling. This one's better. Theoretically, 3 houses plus yours, 4, that's 4 buyers. If we can get all 4 buyers bidding on this, we're going to bridge that gap to what it's truly worth. Sold it at 345, so significantly 20 grand over the asking price. What happened to the other 3 houses? 2 of them reduced to 325, still available as of recording this, and one of them withdrew from the market. And we had an offer that was really accurate of that house. So it was a better house. It didn't get the 350, but that was never promised.
I think also as well is I think it for me it was the level of trust that you built with that client, and ultimately when you're looking at it, and it's another point that I was going to say earlier on, the amount of times I've gone into a place and they said, I spent 25 grand on doing this up, or 25,000 doing the property up. Yes, don't get me wrong, it does increase the saleability at times, but it's not always going to appeal to a particular buyer. Just because you spent all this money doesn't necessarily mean. Like I've had somebody spend a couple $100 grand on doing a property up, extensions and that. Person bought it, kitchen he put in was near on 40 grand. What he ended up doing? Replacing it. First thing he did. And the kitchen was stunning. So, yeah. But again, it helped with the saleability, and yet it got obviously a top price. But just because you spent that money doesn't mean that somebody's then going to pay you that money back.
No, definitely. And it's not just houses. I mean, I'm 15 grand into a 30-year-old BMW. I'm not getting a quarter of that back. So it's just part of it, you know. If you want to, you know, dress it up and have it. I always say to people like, oh, Ben, what should I do to my home? What should I do this? I'll give advice on saleability, but I won't sit there and say, well, your kitchen's a bit dated, so just shell out 15 grand. And I can't look you in the whites of the eyes and promise you that A, that kitchen's going to be there when the next person moves in, or B, you're going to see that money back or not more. You know, if I'm employed by a seller, it's to give them the best advice to walk away with the most amount of money, because that's what I would want if I was selling. So I'll never say, you'll never hear me say, you know, your kitchen can be 60 years old, it can have a freestanding oven, nothing wrong with it. We just price it attractively.
And going back to that other property, if somebody said to you, you were going to put a kitchen in there, don't bother, price it attractive, and there you go, you got an offer 15% over the asking price.
There you go.
So this is a really interesting topic, this one. So is Kent still a good place to buy, or Sittingbourne, shall we say? Ben?
I would say so. There's lots of benefits for people of all backgrounds. Let's cover the elephant in the room. London buyers, you hear. We've got an extensive London database. What the London database really is Rightmove. So there's no fanciness about it. But for Sittingbourne as an area, you've got the direct line to Victoria, St Pancras. Fantastic for people that are working, especially still have lives up in London.
And that's just over an hour?
Less than.
Yeah.
We went up to St Pancras. It was 55 minutes each way.
There you go.
Rush hour.
And they're frequent as well.
Very frequent. You don't have to be waiting. I think I waited the longest I've ever waited for a London train. I waited about 15 minutes. So there's that element of it. Again, like my partner's family are all from South East London. If something happens and we need to get to Eltham, 45 minutes or less, we're there. You go straight on the M2. You've got the new flyover now on the A249, one of the main dual carriageways from Sittingbourne. Gives you direct access to Maidstone, where we are now. It's quickly becoming a really good hub for people to move to.
Yeah. And I think if you speak to, again, a lot of Sittingbourne residents, and again, this is going to be 50-50. There's going to be a few likes, a few dislikes to this. But there's obviously a lot of development that's happening around Sittingbourne. Now, ultimately, I don't fully agree with it. I'm an outdoor person. We're always out in country parks and whatnot, and we have to go that little bit further to find a few places, and they are building a lot on land, which, don't get me wrong, I don't disagree with, but ultimately it is increasing the value of the area.
Yeah, so it's definitely increasing.
But I don't agree with it.
Well, look, the thing is, right, we have a high street branch. The realities of the world, without getting political, is that if we don't have houses, we have homeless, and would you rather walk down a high street and have 20 people beg at your ankles before you get to Starbucks, or would you rather the housing? It's a necessary evil. I'm of the same opinion, but I don't have a magic wand to.
Well, the amount of people as well, and it is unfortunate, and there are a few, unfortunately, that are in the town, although I've seen them recently.
Not too many.
Which is good. Even with that, you look at the gossip boards and everybody moaning about it. So this is the problem. And again, don't get me wrong, actually, we won't go on social media because it just frustrates me. So we'll talk about something.
Don't worry about it.
But ultimately,
the point is, it's going to increase the value of the area. And it's not just, I would have my back up a bit more if it was just homes they were doing. Mm-hmm. They are doing tricky roadworks that's made my life very difficult for the last 5 years, which are coming to a close. I think we're 12 months away from everything being spot on. Mm-hmm. So Sittingbourne as a whole should work even better than it already does. But it would be a lot worse if they hadn't developed around the forum. So we've now got cinema, bowling alley, Nando's, Sentado Lounge, where we had our original meeting. Literally and figuratively a stone's throw away from the station. It is developing into something that covers, it's still got the countryside for the slower aspects of life in areas of Highstead, etc., Tunstall, Bredgar, but then also within the thick of things there are more developments tailored for the youth, which is ideal, because ultimately that is the future.
So, and also if we look at, I would say, even though the market for me, and we hear this quite a lot, and what's obviously the predictions over the next year. The predictions are in line with about 2 to 4% growth, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be saying that it's unaffordable. It's surprising for me, the budgets of first-time buyers now. And this is an interesting point, actually, because obviously, again, recording this on the 7th of October, one of the key things that we have seen, especially in this last couple of weeks, I went through this exercise with you the other day. For me, there was a lot of activity in and around that 3,325, load of activity around the 2,210, 240 sort of level. But a really, really interesting point, and what I'm seeing is the amount of first-time buyers that are coming back into the market. So that's positive. And I know there's the comments of, it's unaffordable.
There's always been them comments, though.
And
I mean, I said that you would catch me ranting and raving about unaffordable first-time buyers 24 months ago. And I'm 10 months into owning my first time.
Yep.
It is tricky, but there are, again, speak to more people. And I'm not just saying your mate who knows the guy. I'm saying call your agent or any agent in your town, call all of them and just have a chat with the mortgage advisors there. Because I had spoke to 2 people that were from my old employment that were just the best in the country, everything's great, Rosie, they give you everything you need. There's a difference of about 60 grand for a first-time buyer after the other gentleman that I spoke to, because there was a deal there that the other one didn't have access to. You gave the example earlier on the property that sold at 375 that needed really close about 30 grand more on papers, what they felt they needed or wanted. He spoke to Dylan, and all of a sudden that 30 grand was there. So, and it's not something set in stone. You speak to a broker 6 months ago, and then you speak to them today. Everything about it, for better or worse, can and will look very different. And
it's an interesting point, because it goes back to, and I'm not going to mention names, but there was a Panorama program about it recently about agencies forcing mortgage services, and I know there's another couple that are trying to push their financial service arm, which is more in the benefit of them rather than the actual client. Yes, there are referral fees that we do get, but I always believe in giving the right advice. And when you've got Dylan there that's actually got an extra £30,000 more for them, which is enabling them to move, is that not worth a couple £100?
Oh, certainly. And the best thing about most mortgage services is it's free to find out. And that's why I say speak to everyone. Obviously, if you've, again, back to Panorama, the way that was orchestrated was different. I'm saying to buyers, just speak to a few. I know it's a ball ache. No one wants to sit on the phone talking. Like the least sexy part of a house move is, Christ alive, how much are my monthlies? Like, that's not sexy at all, is it? So,
and I think also, when you're going back to it, the key question to ask, and if you're speaking to anyone, are you looking at whole of market? And are you genuinely looking at whole of market? Now, It's a really interesting point because, again, they get high commissions from using their in-house mortgage advisor. That's the reason why they push it, which is not why, and again, this is the key thing in everything that we do. This is why I don't incentivize you or anybody else on the wrong metrics, because I think you get the wrong outcome then. I can see why people don't want to speak to a couple, because if you go and see one of those mortgage advisors, you're then sitting in that office for 2 hours, which is a long drawn out process, where I know if you speak to Dylan, all it is a 5-10 minute conversation of the facts. He'll go away and find the product. So you don't have to sit down for 2 hours having a chat with a mortgage advisor, which you might have already done. And that's the way of, in my opinion, it's a good sales tactic if you want, because I haven't got 2 hours to spend. I haven't got half hour to spend, 10 minutes to spend. So to save time, yeah, I probably wouldn't go and speak to somebody else. So if you are thinking it's going to be a waste of time, trust me, it's not.
No, definitely.
I know it's a bit weird saying an estate agent, trust me, I don't like using that. But ultimately, as I said, I don't get anything, and I don't gain anything from it. So I would buy in Sittingbourne, to be honest. I live in Medway, and the only reason that I haven't bought in Sittingbourne is I like to keep the two separate. There are some really nice places. There's a lot of London buyers moving down this way. The London exodus, is it still impacting Kent?
What do you mean the London exodus?
So London buyers moving out to Kent.
I would only think positively.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it sort of ties into first-time buyers as well. Like, I think it's a great thing for sellers to look at. Like, we've had ones, that part exchange one over 3 floors. I won't mention the address because it's an awful lot of money for a first-time buyer. I can't believe a gentleman buying on his own. His partner was moving in, but all through him. Not much older than me. So this is a perfect storm. The property was chain-free. Mm-hmm. He has a massive budget, purchased the property, and it's a chain of them and the sellers. It's a great opportunity to minimise a chain and still get the right kind of money, because the budgets for some of these first-time buyers in London are significant, significantly higher than maybe a couple that work in Sittingbourne, just because obviously that's where the money is. Maybe they're spending 3 hours a day commuting, so they're earning every penny of it. But from a seller's perspective, I think it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why Sittingbourne? We discussed that with obviously all the development and local amenities that are obviously being built.
Great schools as well.
Great point. And that's one of the key things. Again, as I said, I grew up in Medway, I live in Rainham, but it's a really interesting point because I knew nothing about Sittingbourne before I come down in 2007. And again, from what I heard, you wouldn't want to go to Sittingbourne. But I must admit, there's certain parts of Medway towns I wouldn't want to go to, personally. When I look at Sittingbourne, I think the schooling is one of the things that I've highlighted that has always done exceptionally well. And there was always one school that did better, but again now, change of not change of ownership, is it?
Rebrand.
Yeah. Rebranded, new principal.
I went there for sixth form.
Did you?
And I won't tell you the school. I went to secondary school in Sittingbourne as well. That was meant to be, other than the grammar schools, because I wasn't quite smart enough. It was meant to be the best school in Sittingbourne. And I'll be honest with you, this school that had a bad reputation before, it wasn't rebranded when I joined either, so I would assume it's only better now. But while I was there, it was under the old umbrella, which people called Sittingbourne Crime Centre. Mm-hmm. I'll explain to you now that the level of respect and forming that I had from the staff there and general care and development of me as a person was far greater in this school that everyone had a bad name about.
And it's interesting because, again, as I said, when I came over to Sittingbourne, there was always one doing better than the other, and it's gone up leaps and bounds.
There's not a bad school, primary or secondary, in Sittingbourne. It's a fantastic hub for education. Mm-hmm.
And it's a good point, actually, because we've just won Employer Award for young people, which actually, out of all the awards that I've won, that's probably the one that's actually meant quite a bit, that we're actually supporting young people. And I'm doing a number of things over the next year and doing a couple of presentations at school. So if there is any teachers or anything along those lines that want us to pop in, more than happy to do so. But yeah, it's a really, really great point. Is it good as well? Obviously, we love a curry, don't we? So
can we shout out the Maharani?
I don't think there's any issues in shouting out the Maharani locally.
Yeah, so I've been going to the Maharani Curry House. We've eaten there before. Shabal will look after you and the team. It's worth a visit.
Yeah.
I just want to squeeze that in there.
And again, there's a new place that's opened up down the road, isn't there? Where we need to go to.
We try them all.
Yeah.
We'll try them all.
So, and again, it's not always for everybody, but again, there's quite a few nice eating establishments. That's a big word for me.
Did you read that off the paper?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't ask me to spell it. Let's just again a guide to Sittingbourne or a guide to Sittingbourne's neighbourhood. So, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Well, I was thinking if I throw at you an area, just come up with a few points and benefits of being there. Like, for example, the first thing that comes to my mind, I think, let's use Kemsley as an example. Fantastic value for money.
Yep.
It's got its own train station, which is a direct link into Sittingbourne, which is just brilliant. So even if you're not driving, it's an extra 5 minutes of your day to get to London, which is still phenomenal for how much money you're saving at that side. And you're right by the A249 with the new roadworks that they're doing to make things more efficient, whether you're accessing anywhere in Maidstone, the M2 towards London and the Medway towns, or even back over the bridge to the sunny Isle of Sheppey. I think that's 3 real big benefits to being there, but value for money, massive.
Yeah, and even so, like when I look at the prices and what they did, there always used to be a huge divide with the south side of Sittingbourne, which again, I know you've got a load of like £1 million houses. But the difference when you're looking at new builds or more modern builds, the difference now, there's not a huge difference in pricing from one to the other. And I think, again, that's down to London buyers moving down this way. When we're talking about types of properties available, I've sort of discussed a couple there. There's quite a mixed range, isn't there, in and around Sittingbourne. Obviously, you've got the properties that are close to the town centre. You've got all your Victorian houses, haven't you? A bit of character.
Massive. High ceilings.
Yeah, 1930s I'm always a fan of, to be honest. They're a little bit further out. What else would you say? Anything else that you wanted to add to?
Well, I mean, every area has got a large range, really. But there's certain areas that are sort of more, I mean, Iwade is more of a newer development. You've got anything from 5-bed detached houses to 2-bed mid-terraces.
It's like a little town now.
It is its own little town. Well, I call it a town. It's a village, really, isn't it? And it's got everything you need there. And what I like the most about Sittingbourne, because I used to work in the Medway towns, is in the Medway towns, people are very proud of where they come from, but it's not too much different areas within an area. Obviously, yes, I worked in Walderslade, so there's a few different postcoded areas that do offer different value for money. But Sittingbourne, I just feel like at this very moment in time, there's not a bad place to live anymore.
No.
There's seriously not.
No, I quite agree. This talk as well, actually, because you've made a very good point there about, I know we're focusing on sort of Kemsley and Church Milton now. What about the country park?
Love it. It's brilliant. I mean, Lauren and I did a video there before. Anything from, I mean, it's a hot spot for dog walkers. I'd met somebody on a viewing in Kemsley, funnily enough, who lives on the Isle of Sheppey, but not just anywhere, all the way at the back, Warden Bay. So it takes 15 minutes or more to even get off the island. She drives there every day with her dogs. You wonder why. It's massive. You've got a fishing lake at the back, which is brilliant. A good friend of mine goes fishing there. Very tough lake to fish. Fantastic dog walking spots. You've got the park for anything family related. You've got a massive open green where it's brilliant to see so many families kicking a football around, etc., etc. And not only that, just on the entrance, there's a new development. So if you want to get a cheeky coffee and a Greggs sausage roll on the way up there, you can.
Yep, that's new, isn't it?
That's all new. Car parking, all added and new, secure, locked gates. It's well maintained. Yeah, you'll never go there and you're never going to get stung by a fawn that's going to be hanging like metres out of a bush. It's really well kept. It's a great place.
It's crazy as well, because obviously I've been here, as I said, since 2007, and I only went there 3 years ago.
Really? You haven't lived.
Kids, that's probably why, isn't it? My little terrors. So that's obviously then on that side of things. You discussed Iwade. Obviously got a nice little nature reserve type protected area there. Nice little, it's not a precinct, is it? But it's a nice little square of shops and takeaways and coffee house.
Very village feel.
Yeah.
Very village feel to it.
Public house. You've got
great Hunter's chicken in there as well.
Is there?
Very good.
South side of town, which for me was always an area, it's not actually dedicated as an area, but I think a lot of people that live there class it as the south side of town. Obviously, you've got, as I said earlier on, you've got a lot of premium houses there. You've got the two school, 1, 2, 3 schools.
Technically, Westlands included is that side as well. You know, there's a few. I think for that side, it's potentially bigger plots in some aspects, depending on where you are. Quicker access into town, because as much as the area's wider, it's not as long. So like from the back end of Kemsley into town, again, from the back end of the south side into town, let's say Tunstall, it's a lot quicker. Quality of life, I don't think it's too dissimilar to anywhere you live in Sittingbourne, but yeah, access to the schools and just general getting around is sometimes easier because it's
A couple of recreational grounds as well. And then obviously then you're on the cuff of all the villages, which again, you've got a number of nice walks.
yeah, it's I don't know. Obviously, people say because that comes under an ME10 one postcode, i.e. South Side, and some people do still look for that, but it's nowhere near as prominent. I mean, I've been with you, over a year now, and even when I started, that terminology was thrown around a lot more by sellers and buyers than it even is now. And I think that divide is just diminishing.
Oh, no, 100% is. So moving within Sittingbourne, the upsize and downsize perspective. So when we're talking about the property ladder, and trends that you're currently seeing with residents, and what is it you're sort of seeing in the market at the moment, this moment in time?
A lot more upsizes, because as you say, some of the newer developments in whether it be Kemsley, Church Milton, Highwade, or anywhere in between, so let's say there's 2-bed starter homes, as they were once called, sort of place I'm in. Eventually, you have more kids, and eventually you just want something a little bit bigger. So the upsize is very typical. It's probably makes up, I would say, with confidence, 2/3 of people's moves. Downsizing is it's an interesting one. A lot of people, I would say that's on par with even a relocation. A lot of people, like we use Southside as an example. A lot of people that sell there, they've owned it for 40 years. They've lived there, and some of them might move to the West Country. Some of them generally might just look for a bungalow in that area of town, like an Auckland Drive or Hamilton Crescent. But yeah, I mean, because there's so many working people in Sittingbourne, the upsize is a lot more common. I think it's that strive, that goal, and I see that a lot. It's one of the most similar things to Medway towns, because again, you're that much closer to London. Is that hustle and bustle and the wanting the extravagant things. So yeah, upsizing is always ideal. So if you're thinking of moving to the West Country and you want to sell your house that you've had for 40 years, there's plenty of buyers out there that are looking to fill the boots.
When we talk about the 2025 UK property market, what's really happening? So if we look at rates, etc., what would you say is actually happening within the market right now?
Well, things are pointing in the right direction, I think. Obviously, we have got the budget looming over, I think that's more affecting people in £500,000 up region because of this spoken about, not spoken about tax that might be happening. But ultimately, if we go back to the Bank of England base rate, I think I saw the biggest change. You remember a couple of years, it must have been about 18 months or more, when it finally came down to 5%. All of a sudden, when it was a round number, things started to boom, at least in the market I was working in. Since coming down to 4%, feels very similar.
Yeah, and I think my view on it is it's a little bit more stable at the end of the day, which I would say the fact it is giving us a bit more confidence. Don't get me wrong, it is a bit of a jump up, and my mortgage jumped a couple £100, so I can sympathise there. But I think it's a good thing that there is a little bit more stability to the market. There's a little bit more, I would say, predictability as well.
No, definitely. And I think obviously when everything, let's again back to the base rate, and when interest rates just absolutely skyrocketed a couple of years ago, I think that level of uncertainty, it's taken a while to simmer down. I think, again, without talking what's going on in the world, I think there's so much surprises on a day-to-day basis in general that people are starting to think now, look, well, the interest rates are going down. Housing market seems relatively stable. We're talking percentages either way, 1 or 2% here and there. So it's nothing drastic like we would have seen in 2023 perhaps. But yeah, I mean, stability, key word.
And I think it sort of just goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, because when you're looking at all these talks of what they're going to be potentially bringing in, and it might be saving money, the thing is it could end up costing you more, because again, ultimately, especially if you're in rented accommodation at the moment, like you're paying somebody else's mortgage as it is anyway. So if you're holding off for something to change in the market, or you're holding off moving home because of stamp duty, because there's talks about removing this.
Don't wait.
Yeah.
All you're doing is making sure that somebody else is stable in the interim. If you're in a position where you're renting and you've got a deposit and an opportunity to secure a mortgage that's going to allow you to own your own home, whether it's a downgrade or not, do it. There's always going to be a government that's going to do one thing, that's going to say another, there's going to be whispers of something, but ultimately that has been, as much as it feels real because it's now, go back 20 years, who would have predicted the recession? We don't know. You go back maybe 2015, where things have bounced back significantly. If you asked somebody the question, would the property market look like 2015 in 2007, they would have said you're crazy, the world's falling apart. So I think ultimately what we've learned from all this craziness over since the year 2000, all the ups and downs of anything in life, everything will be okay.
It's another interesting point, because also as well, if you're currently on the market and your agent is saying and being negative about these certain points, they've run out of ideas of what to tell you, and the only thing that they can then revert back to is, it's the budget, it's this, it's that. We've taken on 3 within the last 2 weeks that were on with another agent. We've sold them within that time frame. So what you have to look at here is I don't think it's even being lied to, is it? I just think they've lost ideas of what to say. They might have said 300. The house was probably worth 270, and they haven't got the balls to actually go back and say, look, your house is worth X. So let's blame it on the budget, and then let's hope that the market's going to pick up.
Yeah. So a couple of points.
But it's not bad. No. This is the other thing. Like when I say the market's going to pick up, it's not bad at the moment. If it's priced right, it will sell. End of.
Yeah, there's no two ways about it. And you said the hope word as well, which as soon as you hear your agent saying you're hoping, you're out of luck. And you are right. I do think it sort of ties into what I said earlier when I mentioned about listing targets. I said there was 3 points. The third point, which I actually don't believe I said, was the ego side of things. Because a lot of people that are valuers, and we've said we're not valuers, they're going to give the advice, and if it doesn't work, they're going to blame anyone but themselves. Just look yourself, put your hand up, say, look, the advice I gave you was based on data, which at the time was accurate. Now we have the benefit of experience. It's not quite right. We should make this adjustment, and this is what we should do, and this is a result that we're expecting as a result. This is a process we're going to do to get you there. Yeah. Simple as that.
We sort of did touch base on a bit of first-time buyer focus, didn't we? But what would you say would you say there is any hurdles for first-time buyers at the moment?
Well, the biggest one would have been April, wouldn't it? Where they changed the stamp duty threshold. But to me, again, like I alluded to earlier, things happen. This is normal now. We'll crack on. If you want a house, it's just no matter what you feel about it, it's reality. You just get on with it. And I think I'm shocked at that as a figure, that first-time buyers, I don't believe the activity's dropped off one bit as a result of that change. Obviously, it's horrible for a first-time buyer to weigh out all of that money for stamp duty. I've got my opinions on stamp duty, but we won't go there. But yeah, it's not slowed anything down. I don't know how you feel about that. I've not seen a drop-off.
No, and again, I suppose when you're looking at it, there's quite a lot of schemes available, isn't there, for first-time buyers? Help to Buy, ISAs,
etc.
You've got shared ownership.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The schemes are there. I think the biggest scheme I've probably seen recently is Bank of Mum and Dad.
It's a great scheme.
Yeah.
It's just like a very hard scheme to get into because that's decided 9 months before you get here.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, again, if you're looking at what the government's doing, they're talking about inheritance tax again, aren't they? And adding to that. So, again, I'm not going to talk politics and that, but if you've got money in there, the best thing you can do to try and avoid this is stick it into property, and especially if you've got a little in there that you can help out. Because I'd rather, if you've got that money sitting there, I'd rather it go, well, personally from my point of view, I'd rather it go to my kids than with the government.
Well, yeah, exactly that. So yeah, I think we are going to be, that's probably going to be more of a trend moving forward, definitely, if they do what they're talking about. I don't want to get into it,
No.
but
So let's talk technology.
let's talk technology.
So going back to technology, how do you think it's going to change the market? Do you think it's going to change the market?
I think it's going to change the world,
Mm-hmm.
and the property market's part of that. It's going to help with, I think, first of all, from a buyer's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Google searches are down for the
Mm-hmm.
first time ever. I think it's the first year where it's ever been down.
Mm.
How far down it is, and is it world ending for Google? I don't know, but I think it ties back into AI. You've got ChatGPT. I think we're heading in a direction, and I think every system's going to work like our heads-up property alerts, where you type in your absolute niche criteria, even if you want to be within a quarter-mile radius of a certain pub you and the boys like to drink at, it will only throw properties at you that suit based on that and your further criteria. I think Rightmove, etc., is going to might be going.
I don't know.
Depends how well they integrate. Because it's AI. AI will be. I genuinely believe that, and somebody might show me this in 10 years and say, "What an absolute idiot."
My view on it is I don't feel Rightmove will go. I feel at this very moment in time, the way that agents can offer something different is not relying on Rightmove. Now, I was one of those agents several years ago where I'd relied massively on Rightmove, do this, do that, spend X amount of money a month because you're going to get more inquiries. The really, really interesting point, and the way, as I said, we're using technology now within. If you're a buyer at the moment and you're not registered on our system, I can tell you now, probably 5 times out of 10, you've got a 50% chance that you won't see the property that we're looking to sell because we're not relying on Rightmove. So if you are serious about buying a house at the moment, you can register direct into our system. You don't even have to pick up the phone to us. I would strongly suggest you do so because you will not see everything that we are listing unless you're registered in our system, which is where we're going through the next level. But I feel personally for me, and this is where a lot of agents are heavily reliant. We've been doing this for a number of years. We come by fluke, going back to an old strategy that worked, which was, again, simple terms, understanding buyers. But ultimately, it put us in good stead when the market changed. And when the market changed and it was dire, this is where you've got agents then blaming the market because they've got no other idea of what to do. So for me, that's the biggest tip that I have is if you're looking for a house, we're not going to bombard you every 5 minutes with properties that aren't available, i.e. if you're looking for a house, we're not going to call you on a flat, but our system will alert you to exactly what you're after. So it's going to change massively for me.
What's your thoughts on virtual staging while we're talking about AI and the way the systems work?
There's a few agents now that are using it, isn't it? Because again, it's one of those new things that looks like shiny. Don't get me wrong, you have a very limited time to capture a buyer's interest now. We're in this habit at the moment that a lot of buyers look on their mobile phone. We're used to doing this. That's obviously flicking the screen, just in case. But we're now used to doing that. And what did we hear the other day? I don't know if I'm going to do the
Mount
lady
Everest,
credit.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
Is it 3 weeks?
Yeah, so
might have
how
been,
long it would take us to walk up Mount Everest, but in a couple of weeks or a few weeks, we would have scrolled that amount of times. This is crazy when you put it like that. I haven't done it justice.
No,
but you get the
powerful.
gist of it, don't you? So when you're looking at that and you're going through your phone, and again, most people now look into the mobile phone for looking for a property, you've got a very limited time. So if you've got something there that's nice and shiny and making it stand out, great. To use virtual staging, the worry that I have from buyers' feedback is they're viewing it on the basis, and even though it says virtual staging, people don't look at that.
No.
So it can deter a buyer. So they're going in thinking one thing, and then they view the property and think another. And it's a little bit of a, what's the word? Deflating.
Yeah.
But I know the point behind it is he's trying to make somebody think about how it could be, but ultimately it's probably worth actually investing in a proper stager so then you actually get it hits at the right point. It's looking good online. and then it's looking good when they're actually viewing the property. That's my view on it. I think it's a bit of a fad personally, but that's just my view on it.
It could also be a bit of a detriment as well, because like you said, you don't have much to capture the audience attention, and some of them, obviously, they're normally put next to a picture of the actual room. But I think, like, if somebody looks at that and they go, "God, I don't even like what it looks like done up," it might not be their style. Somebody else might love it, but if they think, "Oh, well, that's the best it can be," I'll just disregard that. Sometimes just seeing an empty room and letting somebody's imagination, which everyone has one, just go wild. Like my house, I knew what my house was going to look like. I knew what flooring, paint I was going to do before I viewed the house if I was going to buy it. But if I had a virtual stager, it might have been like, now that you've done that, I don't even like it toshed up.
But looking at it again, let's go back to what we were just talking about earlier on. So, what would you rather? Would you rather have 20 buyers and nearly 20 offers, or 20 odd buyers and nearly 20 offers, or would you rather have 20 buyers or 20 viewers and one offer?
Exactly, you'd take the offers, won't you?
Yeah. So, and I think, and this is the difference now, is the strategy-wise, a lot of agents are relying on this to get more people through the door, which is going to probably ultimately mean a waste of time waste of time viewers. Yeah. I'm not saying it like that. It sounds really bad. But that's the gist of it, isn't it? I'd rather have 20 serious buyers than I'd rather only have 7, to be honest, because it's a bit more time consuming.
20 is too much.
That was a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting point. How it's streamlining the property buying and selling process. I don't think it's there yet.
No.
I think we're a way off. I think the key issue for me at this very moment in time is the after sale.
Yeah, can we get some AI solicitors, please? Other than Lewis.
Would it be a bit naive if there's a solicitor watching this? I don't know. I do think that there's going to be a lot of tasks there that, from what I hear, and again, actually, I quote this from people that I rely on, and this is over the last few years. I quote a solicitor that now unfortunately has passed, but his words were, you have a young breed of conveyancer now that's coming up, and they're going by a checklist of what they need to send across, whereas it's some of the questions that are coming across are just, in my opinion as well, are ridiculous. I might get slated for that, but I'm quoting, I'm not going to say good solicitors, but I'm quoting people there that are getting the process done within 5 weeks, or their part of the process, not the chain, rather than conveyancers there that are taking 20 weeks plus to get a deal with, which is the average at the moment across
20 weeks. Wow.
I'm a little bit out on that, but I know it wasn't too far from that.
You might be right. I mean, I really struggle to understand, because I've never been a progressor, and my house purchase was no chain, and I used Lewis, so I held up the process and he was ready in 7 weeks. And I just...
Oh, he took a bit longer this time, did he?
The thing is, I can't...
Didn't have me chasing him.
It was so just streamlined. And I'll be honest, as an estate agent, my jargon for the legal side of things is relatively poor. And it just seems so simple. I don't get how 20 weeks has become the new norm. I just don't get it.
I think in my very naive view in it is that I think at the moment, my view is I think they're overworked. I think they're working with too many deals. They're getting a lot of calls from sellers. They're probably getting a lot of calls from me. I know I've upset somebody recently because I called them out on a, not so much lying. I think it could be interpreted as lying. It could be interpreted as... I don't
know what the word would be. Insulting.
Yeah, potentially. But then the way I see it is, one conveyancer told me they dealt with inquiries, the other one told me they hadn't, so I put them both in together and I caught one out. That wasn't me purposely. At the end of the day, I think that, again, it goes back to, I think the problem being is there's a lack of accountability and ownership, and my view is I don't feel that there's enough. We work with a few, obviously, and there's a lot that rely on us to help out. And I think we can do a lot of the heavy lifting, to be honest. I don't think there's a lot that do actually rely on us. I think they just see us as a bit of a nuisance.
Which is a shame, because if you merge them both together and we work like we do with Lewis, look what's achievable.
And I think ultimately the key is we're not... that's the other comment, isn't it? Estate agents just want their commission. To be honest, at the end of the day, commission goes out of it. When you got somebody that, and we pick up the phone pretty much 99% of the time. So we can't avoid a call. We can't be in a meeting. We can't be this. We are speaking to people time and time again. And clients have my mobile number. And when you've got somebody there that's crying, that several £1,000s that could be coming towards us,
Suddenly
to be honest,
sense.
it honestly goes out the window, because ultimately the way I see it is this person's stressed on the point of a breakdown, and I'm the only one that can help them. So we're not chasing commission, we're just trying to make it whole easier. But I feel there should be more that should rely on us a little bit more. But that's probably the least I say on that one, the better.
Oh, that's fair enough. Well, moving swiftly on from that side of things, what do you want to talk about next?
Beyond the sale board, although I do feel the for sale board is still a effective tool. The simple term for me is it's a 24-hour salesman, 7 days a week. Yeah. If it goes on too high and it's been there for several weeks, it's going to probably look desperate. But the amount of times we've sold something from a for sale board is surprising, really. But anyhow, so beyond that, what do we do to market properties? Is there anything additional that we're currently doing rather than the for sale board and sticking it on Rightmove? We've discussed obviously how effective we are off market.
Yeah, so the 2 weeks off market to start. Good old fashioned estate agency. Incredible things can happen without need to be on Rightmove, and then it also puts you in a position where, like we had one recently, buyer was at the asking price. Seller was never expecting the asking price even on the market, but wanted a further £10,000. You dangle that carrot. Look, we've got this here. It's going to go to Rightmove because we're not at the target the seller's looking for. But if you can meet X, we won't go live and we'll sell it to you today. So that's a great tool for helping sellers get just a slightly better price. Obviously, there's the videos we do as well. So the heads up videos, which tie straight back into our heads up property alerts, which helps fuel the fire for the whole 2 weeks off market. So before we've even gone on Rightmove, we've done a 2 week campaign of genuinely us like earning you alluded to commission earlier. We're absolutely smashing the phones for 2 weeks, getting as many qualified good people through the door. There's a lot of agents that do this approach, that do it just to tie up their own chains, send their sellers around. Maybe one person to if you're lucky, but again, we keep alluding to best price. So, how do you know you're getting the best price? So
I think also as well, going back to that, is again, it's not there is, for me, like you could say to me, oh, I've got X property, I could still probably tell you who our hot buyers are in that. Again, that's the old estate agent side of things. But again, let's go back to AI at the moment. We've got a system there that is actually highlighting who's looking at that property and when.
Yeah.
So it's actually, and if they're not calling us, we're speaking to them, and ultimately, as I said, we're presenting to them properties that they've told us they want. So it's as I said, you're using a bit of tech and you're also using a bit of old school and skill. So it's not taking. I wouldn't say it's taking anything away from us, but it's a little bit more targeted in that sense.
Yeah, certainly. Then just general, like that. This is the off market before photos. We don't need the photos to get people through the door. I think that's because we've built that trust with our buyers. But then also you got the high quality videos, drone footage, and all the stuff that should be an industry standard that really isn't. We still can't believe how many people's homes are being advertised with photos that look like they were taken off of a potato, like the awkward angles where he's got his mobile up like that and he's zoomed out fisheye lens and the walls look like they're out of plumb because
it's funny actually because earlier on today I see in one of my groups that you see an agency, and I suppose at the end of the day when you've got an agency that's saying it's 399 quid, this doesn't really shock you in what they've done. I don't mind painting the industry poorly here because again it's a cheap online. You get what you pay for. And they've tried to edit themselves and they've edited in 3 cars into the picture and it looks absolutely ridiculous. I could look at it the wrong way here and maybe they're trying to get the clicks on it. Could be very clever, actually, what they're doing there. But
right, you might have just sold it for them.
There you go. There you go.
Look here.
But it's making me talk. Is it making others talk? But even so, when you're looking at the quality of it, it's...
Yeah, it's also the language as well that we speak, which we've had to get a lot better at because the off-market, oftentimes it's 2 weeks before photos, or some of it you might have photos, but ideally we don't really want to be putting them out there.
Quickly, just going back to this, because again, if you're a buyer that's actually looking at the moment and you are serious, now we hear a lot of people say we're serious. The way I class a serious buyer is, look, we need to know you're financially qualified. Now, even if you speak to Dylan or you send in a mortgage in principle, to at least show us you've gone that one step further forward. And you're going to go and view a property if we ring you up or let you know about the property. If you can match those two and you're not one of those that's going to book an appointment and not turn up, because trust me, we're not calling you then. If you're one of those people and then you're registering with us and you're giving us all this information, I can tell you now, we will call you before. The amount of times we've spoken to buyers where they won't send it to us. The way I see it is, I've had to sell my property before. As a seller's point of view, I wouldn't want to have somebody round my house that can't afford the property. So ultimately, you proving to us and us having a duty of care to our own seller, it tells us one thing: you're serious and you're going to get a call from us first, as long as you meet those other requirements. So yeah, that's my big top tip if you're looking for a house and you don't want to miss out.
Yeah, it's very important. And it's just a little way to just get that head start. And a lot of the stuff, and obviously I think you said earlier, it's like 50% chance that you're probably not going to see it at all. The 50% of the houses that sell before going to market are the best ones. And that's not like saying that the other 50% aren't. That's just me genuinely saying that they were priced very well. They had a lot of interest, they were high quality, and they were snapped up at a price that was proven as the best price at the time. You can't sleep on them opportunities, because you hear so much, there's nothing going on. Well, yeah, that's because Harrison's have sold it all off market and you're not registered.
And the thing is as well, is like going back to it, I know that the heavy emphasis at this very moment in time is obviously our sellers and getting the best price for it. We're not forcing a buyer to pay over the odds at the end of the day. Look, at the end of the day, it's worth what you're willing to do so. The way that we see marketing is, look, ultimately, we want to get several serious people in. Like that's the honest truth, right? That's our duty of care to our seller. We're not there just to sell it to one person, because there are agents trying to adopt what we've been doing for the last several years, and they're sending one buyer around because it's tying up their chain. Like, this is not what we're looking to do, and this is not the way I see that is not acting in the best interest of the seller.
No,
it might be for the buyer, ultimately, or their own back pocket because they've got 3 properties below it in the same chain, they're trying to tie it up. But ultimately, from a buyer's perspective, look, I've been in a situation myself. You don't have to pay X. All we're doing is we're giving you an opportunity to go and view it rather than not.
No, definitely.
And it's up to you whatever you pay.
I think you make a good point there, actually, Chris, because I don't want to give the wrong impression out to buyers watching that we're hell-bent on going over the asking price and taking you for every last penny. We used the example yesterday where the record was broken for over the asking price. That wasn't actually a negotiation. That was, I gathered all the offers, sent out an email and called everyone saying, you've got until 3 o'clock today for your best and finals. I'm not going to bounce them off of each other. I'm not going to be immoral because I could take this to the moon. What we'll do is put your best no regrets offer on the table by 3 o'clock. Anything after won't be considered, and the seller's going to make a decision today. Yeah. As a result, them offers, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of them were coming in over the asking price, but ultimately there was no negotiation, there was no railroad. That was just me setting a precedence of what it needs to be, and it needs to be a no regrets offer. It was priced in a way where it was normal to go over the asking price, which I think is great because then you're uncapped. And the buyer that paid the most for it in the best position secured it, and he increased his offer once when I said we're going to best and finals today. So it's not immoral from a buyer's perspective. In fact, it's probably a lot fairer than a lot of agencies towards buyers, but it also happens to work. It's just a recipe that works fairly for both sides.
We haven't got this on here, but I want to be honest, because again, one of the things that we always talk about is reservation agreements and why I believe that these should be mandated. There are talks, like there have been over the last umpteen years, about improving this whole process. So whether or not it's actually going to be brought in, as I said, the key thing for me, they are talking about, which I think is a great thing. It's a bit of a divided bit within our industry. they're looking at certain improvements, and again, like searches and surveys up front. And there was a lot of issues, again, obviously what the market did back in 2007, 2008 when HIPs were introduced, and apparently they affected the market. Don't get me wrong, the market was completely different there. We were in a recession. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of agents at the moment that are going, oh yeah, they ruined the market. They only ruined the market because, searches were invalid after a couple of months, and they were taking several months to sell a property. But for me, this is a step forward, in my opinion. I've said it time and time again. How many times have I said we should have a survey before we go to market? How they do it, I don't know. But ultimately, my view is if you're highlighting all the issues at the very outset, like we do when we sell a property, we're there to sell it, don't get me wrong, but ultimately we don't want any hidden agendas later on down the line. But the reservation agreement, I look at it, and obviously our stats on a reservation agreement, I state it time and time again, is we've got a 94% completion rate. I was absolutely astounded, as you well know, in the last couple of months, at how high our fall-through rate had gone up. And looking through it, we had one that was directly our buyer pulling out. But the rest of them were due to chains or properties that didn't go into a reservation agreement. So we were close to 85%, I believe we were, and our fall-through rate was very minimal. And then suddenly we go down to 5 in 10, and the fall-through rate is suddenly scuppered up. So from a seller's point of view, they are an absolute must-have. You must have a reservation agreement in force. But I was thinking this as we were driving over. The amount of buyers that are saying, what is the benefit to us in doing a reservation agreement? So we've had buyers, haven't we, come to us. That buyer that secured that house, he wanted to sign like yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, because he didn't want them to pull the rug from underneath him.
Yeah. So ultimately, from that buyer, he knows that there's 18 other buyers that are potentially interested. So
19.
Sorry, I got my numbers right. Thank you for correcting me. But yeah, ultimately with that, he wanted to do it. So buyers want to do them as well. And again, most first-time buyers I speak to haven't gone through the process. So they're only going on the advice of mum and dad who are estate agents and saying you shouldn't be doing this. But ultimately, the amount of times where if a seller comes back to us at this very moment in time and tells you they don't want to do a reservation agreement, that really worries me with that seller.
Certainly.
And I think a buyer recently has said, oh, we're committed to it. And I think I'm trying to speculate here, and I would like to have this conversation because she has now signed. I don't know why their view was that they didn't need to do one. Is it a case of them being uncertain themselves? Or are they thinking, well, it's on the market for X, we've paid X, we're not pulling out, and the sellers put it on the market, so they're not going to pull out? Which, if it is that second one, I need to actually find this out. But for me, I look at that and go, the amount of sellers that in my time where they put it on the market, agreed a deal, and then pulled out at the last minute, unless you've gone through that, I suppose from a buyer's perspective, you don't actually know the power of them. What's your views on it?
I think it's the same as anything in life that causes you pain. Mm-hmm. Like if you've gone your whole life been in relationships you've never been cheated on, you're probably going to trust your partner. Yeah, if you've been cheated on and disrespected and publicly whatever, you're going to be a bit closed off. You're going to be a bit wary. Them walls are going to stay up months longer. Yeah. And it's the same with properties. So first time buyers, well, hold on a minute. I was buying one down the road and obviously I had to pull out of it. But they didn't do reservation agreements. That's why I'm still looking now, because obviously I had to pull out. Why'd you pull out? Mm-hmm. Something came up in the survey as a mousetrap in the loft. So we thought it had an infestation, so we just pulled out. It was one I actually heard recently. But my point is, before I sort of come off the rails there, is that unless you've actually had it happen to you, you don't know. And I think we're too quick to trust each other, sellers and buyers. I'm not saying there should be a breakdown of trust. I'm saying it's a small £300 each commitment at the lowest level to say, I'm not going to sell this to somebody else who missed out the 3 o'clock deadline because they were at work and to combat with a higher offer. Mm-hmm. But what I ask for you in return is to match my £300 and not buy the one that comes on down the road next week. Mm-hmm. And it's simple as that. And it's £300 to secure it. I mean, most people, there's a lot of people at the first time buyer age that are paying that every 2 months for their car insurance. And their car's worth 1% of the property value,
Mm-hmm.
and they're paying that every 2 months to insure the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, just guarantee it. I wanted to do one with my purchase. The agent said that they said it to the seller and the seller said no. I think they just didn't want to, so they didn't bother. But I just think, with all this big talk about how do we solve this, only 66% of the deals go through UK wide. How do we solve this giant problem? We'll put a reservation agreement in. You've got 94% right there. Case point.
I think until you've gone through the scenario where a buyer's pulled out on you or a seller has pulled out on you, so you've either been gazumped or gazundered. For me, my biggest case scenario is somebody that went up to exchange of contracts, they trusted the buyer, we told them not to go with it unless they did the reservation agreement. They met them direct, they said they weren't going to pull out because they got on really well with them, which is a bit of a frustrating one with this one. And on exchange of contracts, that buyer pulled out and it wouldn't even give us a reason as to why. For me, unfortunately, we didn't end up selling that property because, again, the seller unfortunately went elsewhere. But our advice to them at the very beginning, it might not have convinced that buyer to buy it. They might have still pulled out. But for me, we would have found out at the very beginning if we would have really forced that, or they would have had their costs covered.
Exactly. And that's the thing that no one realises, because obviously, again, without slandering solicitors, I think they do a fantastic job, and it's a job I wouldn't be capable of doing. But
yeah, I'd agree with that. I wouldn't want to do it.
They advertise as no sale, no fee, which is very much true. The legal fee is no sale, no fee. Mm-hmm. In some, obviously, when they advertise, which is becoming more usual, not regular now. But my point being is there are still searches to pay for. Mm-hmm. There's still your survey to pay for. I am a firm believer that before exchange of contracts, it costs around £1,000 to go through the motions of purchasing a property. Mm-hmm. So the £2,000 is just your £300 back, £1,000 covered, and £700 for your troubles. Mm-hmm. It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, the no sale, no fee. As I said, I know it's out there. It's norm within our industry, but it's really interesting actually, because we'll talk about this at the moment. But that case study that we've just sold actually has actually paid our full fee up front for a reduced rate. So
they're laughing.
Yeah, they've ended up benefiting, but they trusted us to do the job. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah. So
they've paid us at the very beginning to do the work at the very end, which is, again, this isn't normal within our industry. It's something that we've adopted over the last few months. And that seller is quids in. But then that's the option that we gave. So if you want to talk about that, then please give us a call, because, again, there is a flexible option there that you can choose.
Obviously that fee's fixed, and it's fixed on what we advertised it at. So they were paying us up front a heavily reduced fee based on it selling at 210.
But isn't that crazy that somebody is trusting us to sell their house, pay us all the money up front without actually selling it? Obviously, we've performed. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, we've gone all out to which we do on all of them. But for me, I feel there's more added pressure there for somebody to pay us all this money up front and then not actually perform.
During the best and final stages, like I was sort of worrying that I was going to go to them and they weren't going to be happy still because they paid us up front, and the response from them was like, wow, we were a bit worried because we obviously paid you up front. We've since found out that's not too normal. Thank you for just being everything you said you were.
Yeah, I look forward to that testimonial.
Yes.
So there's one thing I skipped here, and it's actually a really interesting point, so I've just re-looked at it. So the growing demand for eco-friendly properties, right? So it is a bit of a hot topic. Mm-hmm. What are buyers looking for? And I think buyers are looking for this, but the one thing that springs to mind here, I've had this conversation with a lot of sellers where they've been quoted X amount of money for solar panels, for instance, which could be anywhere in the region of 8,000 to 25,000, all depending on how big they are, right? And probably there's a few companies that are going to have a go at me on this, but ultimately, does it increase the value of the property? By spending 20 grand or 10 grand on solar panels isn't going to increase your property by 30 grand. It's going to increase the saleability 100%.
To certain clientele.
Yeah. But ultimately, my view on it is it's not going to increase the value of the property. And if you are going to do it and you don't take my advice because you think you can get X amount of money, make sure you buy them and not rent them. That is my biggest top tip because it is an absolute
legal ball ache.
But yeah, it's interesting because a few years ago, a lot of people were asking me about energy performance certificates. And again, is it worth doing X, Y, and Z? And I honestly, at that very moment in time, was saying I could count on one hand how many people have asked to see the energy performance certificate. My view is more and more people are becoming more and more energy conscious now. They are considering cost of living now, which is continuously going up. So for me, these are all added extras, but I wouldn't go and spend that amount of money if you're going to sell tomorrow, personally.
No, I'm sure if the next person that walked into this room might think it's the best thing since sliced bread and they need that for their future and their family and they want that. But then you look at me, if I was buying a house and I had solar panels on the top, for me it's just intimidating. Mm-hmm. How do I store the energy? What do I do this? I would just go without. Mm-hmm. It's horses for courses.
Yep.
I think the right person, a person that's genuinely interested in that, maybe a client like yourself, Chris, who drives an electric car, it might be greatly beneficial to you from a cost standpoint. Mm-hmm. But to me, I'm like a caveman. I just sort of turn my gas fire on.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it goes back. I think it's more 50-50 now than it was 90-10.
In short, without going off on a tangent, EPCs in my first few years of estate agency, one person had mentioned it, and it was only because it was an A, and ironically that house had solar panels, and so he was interested. But up until maybe 6 months ago, he was the only one. Mm-hmm. And in this short period of time ever since, it's a lot more. I mean, we had one of them, a deal sort of fall apart as a result of one, which I'd never heard of before. So yeah, and I think it does tie into the cost of living crisis. And at the end of the day, look, despite the fact that solar panels don't appeal to me, for me to pay more for a property, I wouldn't turn it down, and I certainly would enjoy the benefits of having them from a bill costing standpoint. So yeah, it's interesting, really. And I think it's just everyone wants to have a house that stays warm for as little as money possible as well. So the EPC is not just your solar panels, it's your boiler, it's your windows, it's the way that energy is efficient in the home, and it's a way that energy is stored, the heat is kept in. There's so much to it. And I actually think it's quite an interesting... Have you ever read an EPC report on like where you can improve?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's actually quite interesting. Mm-hmm. I think there's little there's a few DIY, I'm a bit like that, there's a few DIY jobs and little things you can do. Like I've got an immersion tank. If I slap some insulation around that, obviously maybe not me do it, maybe get someone in that actually knows what they're doing. But that knocks it up a couple of scores, and it's like you said earlier, you know, you're going to be... What's the average time someone spends in a house? It's 7 years, isn't it, before they consider moving? If you're going to be someone for 7 years, it's a really small ask for... Even if you did one thing on that checklist for every 7 years, you're going to get the benefit. You're going to bump up, yeah. Mm-hmm. I waffled there.
No, you're good. So obviously we've covered a lot in regards to sellers and obviously buyer advice. We are really hoping, obviously, it's been beneficial. If there's anything that you wanted to know at this very moment in time, or if there's any advice, if you're currently on the market, or if you're a buyer, you want to talk to us about our buyer service, or you're a seller that's stuck at this very moment in time, doesn't know where to go, look, please reach out to us. Look, we can even have a quick video call, so we don't even have to come out and see you. We can have a little chat over the phone, or a video call. You can go through your concerns. We can send you our 12-step plan. So if you're interested in that, click here. Ben, anything else you wanted to add on that?
I suppose sort of final thoughts is don't worry about Christmas. Don't wait till Boxing Day.
Top tip, don't release on Boxing Day.
Don't release on Boxing Day. Only because it's like trying to book in a hotel at 3 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great that you've reached out, but there's no one there to answer your call, so you're going to have to wait. So if you're launching on Boxing Day, congratulations. You're going to be an inquiry unanswered from a buyer's perspective. When are people back? 2nd, 3rd January? Silence in between?
My view is on it, and is the 2nd week of January is when it starts to pick up. If you're a seller releasing on Boxing Day, you're going to be one of 2 properties that is new. The rest of them are going to be reduced. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be one amongst loads of properties because this is their strategy of selling a property. If you're a buyer, great, but good luck actually viewing the properties.
Yeah, I think that's sort of...
Because most agents won't be open.
Yeah.
Which is fair. And ultimately, if you're a seller and you want to get the best price, if you're having one buyer or 10 buyers, I can tell you now which one's going to get you the best price.
Certainly. So, yeah, everything's covered. But yeah, no, final thoughts. If you
Please, look, if you don't agree with anything, I'm quite happy to have a conversation with you or a couple of messages going back and forth. If you want any advice, we'd love to help you. But most importantly, please fire across some questions for us. Because again, if there is anything there, we think we know what you want to know about. But I'd really like to know from you, the public, of what you actually want to know and how we can help you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah,
Probably
help
could.
us shape this next time. So,
Yep.
obviously, a lot of this has been based on market and data. But you might have a general question. Just send us something and we'll talk about it. So you don't have to ask a question to somebody and feel like you can't. We'll cover it for you.
Thank you.
Thank
Chris
you.
from Harrison's Homes.
Ben from Harrison's Homes.
Perfect.